Hello everyone and welcome back to Whisky Wednesday. Cut to the chase, I've managed to get my hands on two bottles which have caused a lot of intrigue this year. One is the Diageo special release Clynelish 12-year-old, 58.5%, and the other one is the Lagavulin 12-year-old Diageo special release at 57.3%. The company I work for, the Whisky shop, did like tastings in two of the shops in London and in Manchester. Oh no, I think the London one was called off due to some train strikes. But luckily, we opened some of our own stock and we got to keep the bottles. And here two of them are. We did have the other ones as well, like the Talisker and the Singleton, but I thought these two would probably be the ones that people wanted to know about the most. One, because Lagavulin 12 a couple of years ago got my Whisky of the Year. I don't think it's been the same since. And Clynelish is always a very interesting whisky to talk about. And indeed, we're going to talk about that one first. So, here it is. I will say, a wonderful tasting example of what Clynelish is. Bourbon cask matured and then finished in Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez. Sherry barrels at natural cask strength. With this very neon, Christmassy looking tiger thing. Tiger? Leopard? Some sort of mythical looking animal next to some sherry casks. Obviously it's meant to be the cat on the label of Clynelish and Barora, like I think it's called a Sutherland wild cat or something like that. We all know Clynelish for being waxy as a profile and having this little bit of smoke, and it does just really good, nice stuff. It has been sat in this glass for probably about half an hour while I just set things up. Not the darkest whisky in the world. We'll try and move out of the way. As you can see, it's pretty light, and with a price tag of £175 a bottle, it did indeed cause a little bit of chat, certainly amongst me and some of my whisky friends too. I made a post about it on Instagram, got a lot of feedback. Some people like the label, some people do not, but one thing people fully agreed on is that the prices are insane. And I've not tried Clynelish 14 for a while, so I don't really have a reference for that anymore because it's been literally maybe 3 or 4 years since I last owned it. But as a 12-year-old whisky, you know, it's a lot of money for what it is. If it was 80 quid, maybe pushing 100, I think people would be like, oh well, Lagavulin used to be that price, maybe it's worth it. Special release Clynelish is always that, it's normally quite special. But we're going to smell and taste this and see what's going on. It is indeed harking back to that wonderfully waxy profile. I need to think of another word to describe Clynelish because I think that so many people don't know what that means and it's kind of difficult to explain. But yeah, it is a classic Clynelish nose. It reminds me so much of like zesting a lemon or like pulling a peel of lemon off to spray over a cocktail or something like that. It just has that beautiful, fresh, zesty, lemony thing to it. I will say I won't get tons of sherry. The overtones to this are that lemon, apple, pear. It's very clean. It's very summery. You know, the label dictates this kind of warmer, colder, like cold time of year sort of whiskey. But nose-wise, it's just got summer written all over it. It even smells like kind of freshly squeezed lemon juice. I'm getting like quite a lot of cocktail-y notes from it. Underneath it, possibly the sherry pulling through, we're getting some really soft kind of gingery notes. There's a little bit of something exotic in there, whether it's like pineapple or kiwi. And then again, just underneath that, some more classic sherry notes, a bit of sultana, some marinated fruit, but not a lot. And again, when we look at the colour of this thing, if I kind of pull it back, like that's a very white wall behind me. To say that's a 12-year-old cask strength product with Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez finishing. For the price, I would like to have known how long it was in those barrels, because at the minute it just appears to be they were in the same room as some Oloroso and some Pedro Jimenez casks. But I am being a little bit cruel with this whiskey, but it's just because like the price is just nuts. but the smell is delicious. And I remember it tasting really good, but let's see if the proof's still there. It still has a big profile. It is hot. I've not tried cask strength whiskey for a while. That is pretty big. Again though, we will go to the texture and the initial taste on the palate. The finish is kind of where the sherry's coming through. If you're a fan of things like Abel Arabuna, if you're a fan of things like Clynelish and cask strength, you'll love the finish on this. It is loaded with nutmeggy, cinnamony, raisin, almost cognac-like richness. You get the spice, you get the pepper. It's slightly bitter in like a gentian root, kind of parsley, slightly salty way. Very little smoke, almost none, really. I am going to try both of these with water too. It's going to be quite a long video, so strap in. Excuse me. Texture-wise, it is so oily. And I've talked about texture in a couple of videos recently, mainly the Glendronach video. As soon as this thing hits your tongue, it's like all of it just swells and becomes just heavier as a liquid. And you'd want that from a product which is natural cask strength, and it is non-chill filtered as well as being natural colour. There's like a more of a sort of banana-y, ripe banana thing on the nose now. A little bit of water. Taste-wise, it leads into almost this kind of like green, herbaceous, almost has a feel of like Angostura bitters to it. I'm not saying you should use this whiskey in a cocktail, but it has a lot of cocktail-y notes going on with it. From the start being, this beautiful exotic fresh fruit kind of smell, into this earthier, more herbaceous, I think sage, parsley again, sea salt. It even has that kind of Talisker-like sea breeze to it. In fact, if I was to compare this to any whiskey, it tastes like a Talisker, but without the smoke. I didn't try the unpeated Talisker from a few years ago. A 15-year-old, I think it was. But this is what I imagine an unpeated Talisker would taste like. Really sweet nose, moving through into this herby green. Now it's kind of peppery on the finish, like chili pepper, black pepper, lemon pepper. A very mouth-coating, rich, oily feel to it. I've added a tiny bit of water to this. I did try it with water on the tasting night, but that was a particularly heavy night, and the next day was just absolutely brutal, work-wise anyway. But to smell, it's almost the same. Water seems to have brought out some of the sweetness of the American oak it's been in. There's almost like a maple syrup, pecan, kind of autumny-ness to it. Okay, so if you add water to this, a very young, spirity note starts to pop out the back of it. It's almost got a feel of tequila. That sweetness you get from agave, and then that kind of earthy undertone to it too. You know what I mean? If you're a Campbelltown fan, if you're a tequila fan, if you are a fan of great whiskey, this is a great bottle of whiskey. It's fantastic. It's multifaceted. It's got layers. Everything from the nose to the smell to the finish is the nose to the smell, the nose to the taste to the finish is radically different. With water, it becomes a little bit more unusual. but it's not worth £175. It just isn't. I don't know what sales of this have been like. The shop I work in, we still have some special releases from last year left in the stock, and we still have some from a couple of years ago, but the more sort of high-end ones like Convalmore and things like that, very niche items. But yeah, I am going to score it. If you take the price away, which is hard to do, it gets like, as far as a complex whiskey goes, it'd reach, I want to say nearly a 9, but like it is a 9. It's very, very, very good whiskey. And if it was below £100 or £100 a bottle, I'd have bought 2 or 3 of them, because it does so much. But we cannot ignore the fact that they're wanting RRP of £175 a bottle for this. And I just can't tell you all to spend that money. I can't wisely advise you to go out and buy this bottle, when if you say, I've got nearly £200 to spend, and I think of the myriad of stuff that you could buy instead of it. So, with the pricing in mind, it drops it all the way down to like a 7.5 for me. So my official score would be a 7.5 for the Clynelish. It is a big drop down, but it's a big old price too. Especially when you start using the word cash strength and you think about all the crazy stuff you can get. Like, you can buy an amazing bottle of Cavalan for that kind of money and get a bit of change. So, number 2, Lagavulin. Now, I actually don't have a problem with this label. I think this label's kind of cool. You know, Lagavulin's always been that fire-breathing, yet charming Isle of whiskey for me. Natural cask strength of 57.3%, and it's matured in American oak as well as virgin oak. And for those of you that have been watching this channel with me long enough, you know that I am a little bit of a simp for virgin oak. Anything that's touched virgin oak, I am instantly interested. And as soon as they said Lagavulin had been in virgin oak, I was like, well, if I was going to buy any of them without trying them, it'd probably be this one. Another wonderfully light colour, but I kind of expect this for a 12-year-old cask strength Lagavulin. I'm burping a lot in this video. I'm very sorry. My dinner's repeating on me. So, stunning colour. There's nothing particularly unusual about this. It's just this year's special release. £135 a bottle. Now, I gave, back in 2017, or maybe early 2018, the Lagavulin 12-year-old from 2017. Best whiskey in the world, undoubted in my book. Still trying to chase down a couple of bottles of it. Been looking on auction sites, but we've got other things we need to save for. But I will happily buy another bottle of that with auction fees and stuff, because I just think it's that good. I would be willing to spend this amount of money, perhaps even a little bit more, to get hold of a bottle of that, because it is just one of the best things I've ever tried in my entire life. As a result, every Lagavulin 12 which has come out after that, it's never hit that mark, but I do think it's an unfair comparison to compare everything to the previous one. You kind of got to look at it in its own singular way. Still compare, you'll always have a preference, but you have to give the singular product its own sort of views. So, to smell, it's just everything I want cask strength Lagavulin to be. Peaty, salty, lemony, peppery, apple juice, salted caramel, just salty things. There's like a seaweed, nori element to it. Smoked fish. There's even like a deli meat vibe, like just the smell of like fatty deli meat. Not as sweet as the 2017 one, because that was like vanilla custard and tarry rope, which doesn't sound like a particularly interesting smell, but for me it was amazing. There's even some like red fruit in there, like strawberry, kind of really tart raspberry. And the booze isn't particularly intense on the nose either. It's quite calm. I've said strawberry now, I'm getting like a strawberry fondant thing, but while sat around a campfire on a beach. Just delicious. The perfect combination of peaty, smoky, salty, sweet stuff. Stunning nose. Just stunning. Apologies for any tasting noises. It's not like the horsed channel or anything like that. Oh my god. That deep breath after a glass of Lagavulin. Stunning. So, the initial arrival of this is a huge like fog with peat smoke and brine. Imagine a whiskey equivalent of a dirty martini. It's kind of what I'm getting. Still tasting it now. The longer you move this thing around your mouth, the more it turns into you get this beautiful contrast. It's kind of the reverse of the Clynelish. It starts out herbaceous and powerful and salty and smoky, and then as you kind of dilute it with your saliva, it starts to push into this caramel, toffee, honeycomb and milk chocolate feel, while still being incredibly smoky and intense. And with the virgin oak, there's a point whilst you're moving it around your palate where that kind of kicks in and it begins to amplify spice and pepper and oak. A great whiskey, like an unparalleled product. I'm yet to try a Lagavulin that I didn't like, or a Lafroig that I didn't like. They are probably my two favourite Islay distilleries. But we come back to the price, and you know, I don't think this one is particularly outrageous. It's essentially gone up £10 a year, pretty much. And this was the one in the shop we actually sold out of the quickest, because I think people see Lagavulin 12-year-old and they see the ABV and the virgin oak and they're like, oh yes, please. And you know, some people are attracted just by this beautiful phoenix on the front of it, but taste-wise, again, I can't deny it. I can still taste the product now, and it's like someone has peated like vanilla ice cream, smoked vanilla ice cream, and then there's almost like a sweet garlic note to it as well. Overall though, price aside, and the price on this one isn't too outrageous because I think people are quite happy to pay it, especially if you're just a peated whiskey fan, because you know, this is what the price of an Octomore. And I think that's a lot better than an Octomore. I'm still going to give you a score, ignoring the price, and then a score with the price. The score without including price would be a 9.5. That's a pretty outrageous bottle of whiskey. The score with the price would drop it down to an 8.5. Because if I had that kind of money spare and someone let me try it, I think I'd probably buy it. But at the minute, I don't have that kind of money spare, so I can't do that. I'm going to add a little bit of water to this one too, just to see what happens, because we did it with the Clynelish. Very long video. Apologies for keeping you warm. The water totally kills any impact the virgin oak is having. All that kind of sweet red fruit caramel thing is gone. We're just left with that kind of olive juice, briny, classic Lagavulin feel. It's got a smell of the 8-year-old to it, just a regular 8-year-old if you add water. Almost mezcal-like. And then we taste. Again, not too dissimilar to the Clynelish. The water kills all the fun. All the sweetness is gone if you add water to it. What is left is more of just a classic Islay, a very sort of rudimentary blueprint of what an Islay whiskey should be. The pepper and the oak's gone, the spice is gone, the sweet fun stuff's gone. It's now just a nice, salty, smoky kind of whiskey. Still got quite a nice texture to it though. The water hasn't sort of killed the texture, but it's moved all the fun influence of the virgin oak away from it. But yeah, there you go. 2 bottles which I thought would be probably the most talked about ones. The Clynelish and the Lagavulin. Overall scores including price, 7.5, if that will choose to focus, and an 8.5 for this, but excluding the price, that'd be a 9 and that'd be a 9.5. But I mean, if you want to buy this and you like peaty whiskey and you kind of buy Octomore a lot, you'll probably love this. It's not the most crazy thing in the world. That tastes nuts and very complex, but I would advise that a group of you probably put in and split the bottle rather than one of you kind of taking a hit for it, because it is great and it should be tried, but it should be like half the price of what it is. But that is my chat to you about the Diageo special releases. Super long video. Apologies, folks. You probably skipped through quite a bit of this. But yes, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.